Hello, friends. Welcome back to the Sales Algorithm. I am Rangan Jayakrishnan. As you're all aware, I am running this podcast series on challenges faced by startups at various stages in their journey. Today's is the third episode, and it gives me great pleasure to introduce our distinguished guests, two brothers and founders of a company, ProDigitas, Shitish Deshmukh and Kaustubh Deshmukh. Welcome to this podcast.
Thank you, JK. Glad to be here.
Hi, JK. Glad to be here.
Great. So let me introduce Shitish. Shitish, after his MBA, started his entrepreneurial journey with a web development company based in Pune. They were amongst the pioneers and helped launch a digital footprint of brands like PNG, Iqbal Cheney, and even the CID of Pune. Then they worked extensively with Allianz Insurance when it entered the Indian market through its partnership with Bajaj. Shitish is passionate about music and sports, and I can vouch for that because we do a lot of singing together. So great. Let me introduce Kaustubh. Kaustubh is a co-founder of ProDigitas. He holds a BE in printing and an MBA in marketing. After a brief stint as a business analyst at Capgemini, he teamed up with his brother in 2007 to begin his entrepreneurial journey. He enjoys working at the intersection of marketing and technology and is passionate about building scalable execution-led solutions for clients. Based in Pune, Kaustubh also enjoys playing tennis in his spare time. And of course, I'm sure he's also a musician because I know him from that. Great. A little bit on ProDigitas. This supports B2B marketing teams across platforms like HubSpot, Marketo, Salesforce, Marketing Cloud, and Sitecore. Since its inception, it has evolved from managing a digital marketing for an Australian domain and hosting provider to become a trusted marketing operations and execution partner for over 200 clients across US, UK, and Australia. Okay, so let's get to business. So, guys, can you tell me how this whole journey started and provide a background of the company you founded?
So our journey started just before the turn of the millennium in 1999, to be precise. At that time, I was just out of. I finished my MBA in 1997, and I had a campus job which didn't, excite me as much, and I was looking for something to start on my own.
So you joined and then
Yes.
Okay.
So I joined and I quit in 5 months.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the only time actually I've worked in a proper job.
Right.
So during that time, I like many others, I first saw. I mean, those were the days of net cafes, and the internet was just about getting mainstream,
Right.
at least in our imagination. And that's the first time I saw a website loading, and I was instantly hooked. I thought, this is an amazing, and coming from a marketing background, I thought that, this was, as good as a man landing on moon, kind of a scenario. It was just very fascinating for me, and I got hooked, and that's the first time when I, decided that, this is going to be, what I'll be doing for a long time in my life. And that's how, we started, probably, one of the first web development companies in Pune. And since it was all very new, literally, understanding what the HTML code and everything. I mean, it was all very new, and I came from a non-technical background as such.
Right.
So I came from a marketing background, but I teamed up with a few people at that point of time, and that's how our web development journey or the digital marketing journey started.
And I'm sure even that time the browsers were still kind of developing and they were not still, there were no standards yet at that time.
Absolutely. I mean, the standards were just about getting established, but more than that, the infrastructure was. I mean, if somebody kind of who knows how the 90s were will know exactly what I'm talking
Sure,
about.
absolutely.
There was VSNL, so we had to use a dial-up modem
Mhm.
to connect to the internet.
Correct.
We had to go to the VSNL office in Alandi just to change the password. So those were the times, where
Unimaginable for guys of
absolutely.
today's budding
That's how we
founders.
started. A dial-up modem, a Pentium 100 probably. That was the first computer which my mom actually bought for me.
Mm.
As a startup capital, and that's how we started.
Fantastic. So, going forward, I'm sure at some point you would have had some kind of rethinking whether this is the proper direction that you're going in, or when was that? When did you really start rethinking if this is something that is worth continuing, or you wanted to kind of pivot, or you wanted to kind of expand?
Well, to be honest, times were really tough, but I don't, kind of the allure or the fascination and the possibilities, which I thought, came with this domain.
Mhm.
They never left me. In the sense, I was always optimistic.
Okay.
It was the model, it was the client experience, it was the money not coming in as much as we wanted, and at the frequency which we wanted, and all of that was there. But the medium itself, the fact that digital marketing is here to stay, never kind of left me, and probably
Right.
that's what kept me going.
Right.
So to answer your question, small pivots, were at a operational level or at a product offering level, but
Right.
we never thought that this is not a great field, as such.
Right. Yeah, that's fine. And coming to specific customers, you said that you had some initial breakthrough with an international customer in our talks before.
Yeah, so that kind of our first breakthrough, actually, to be honest, was from Allianz.
Mm-hmm.
It was like you mentioned in the introduction, when Allianz first came to India, they were looking for a partner who could quickly turn around things,
Mm-hmm.
and kind of didn't have to. So they had an ad agency which were doing the main thing, but they
Right.
were looking. The ad agencies at that time didn't have the web capability.
Right.
So they were looking for a local partner, the marketing department, who could turn around things really, really fast
Mm-hmm.
without any, major, major presentations and
Mhm.
buy-ins from the management and so on and so forth. So we were just small enough and nimble enough to kind of do a lot of things,
Right.
and that's how we came on board. And that really kind of gave a little stability to the whole company as such.
Okay.
And so that was the first little turning point,
Mm-hmm.
which came after 4 years of kind of being in existence. And then the international customer came in 2007, which was almost 8 years after we had started,
Mhm.
and that was from Australia.
Okay, got it. Okay. And Kaustubh, more to you. You were initially in a job, you were working for an IT company, and eventually in 2007, you thought that you should, join your brother. So what drove you into that direction?
No, so the thought, I think, was always there. Kshitish lasted in his job for 5 months. I gave it 2 shots, one after my engineering and one after my MBA. I lasted for 11 months each.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, so the thought was always that, and somehow since childhood, it was ingrained in us that we had this deep desire to stay independent.
Mhm.
So it was never a question of if, it was just when.
Mhm.
So around 2007, while I had already completed, like I said, around 11 months in Capgemini, and like Kshitish mentioned, we had this opportunity from Australia.
Right.
So, and I just felt that was the time for me to kind of fully commit into this thing,
Mhm.
because we've been together in the struggles since 99. So we are staying together. After college, I was always in the office, so it was all happening in front of my eyes.
Right.
So, like I said, it was always a question of when. And I think around 2007, when we finally got this opportunity, we were both confident that this could be something meaningful, which could sustain both of us,
Mhm.
and it was like now or never at that time.
Right.
Yeah.
So meaning that even though he was going through his struggles, you were still also kind of experiencing it because you were together and you knew what's happening and
Absolutely,
just
because
waiting for the
so while I was doing my college, and he was going through his initial struggles, so we are and we've been very close since we are very young, so it was like we were in it together.
That's a
So,
great chemistry.
Yeah.
I have very few examples of brothers being in together at all times, and I have experiences more of brothers having a lot of fights in their childhood and then coming up together. But this is a great chemistry, I must say.
Yeah.
So that might have helped to kind of bring both of you together in a particular thought process.
Correct.
Because
Because see, once you overcome, or once you are together through some challenging times, you kind of develop a different kind of a bond, different kind of an understanding. And
No doubt,
I think that's the basis on which you can build anything. So
sure.
So yeah.
So from 2007, there's been not any looking back, and you guys teamed together and started off with your new client. So probably it opened up a lot of avenues for you to look for growth. Or so, what do you want to say from that point on? What changed from 2007?
Well, it's not like the journey from there on has been like completely smooth. There still have been, kind of ups and downs,
Mhm.
to use the cliche. But more or less, uh, we call it a turning point because, of the experience of, kind of working in a international market completely changed the way, we led our lives.
Right.
Because there's a huge shift, because for the first 8 years we were working exclusively in the Indian market,
Mhm.
and plus it coincided with the part of our struggle, and so we were leading a completely different life. So that way our lives, the way we kind of spend our days and nights, those kind of things,
Mhm.
they changed a lot after 2007.
Oh, okay.
Once
Interesting.
we started working in the international market, because I mean the mindset is very different. I mean the way they look at vendors, the way they treat you as as a partner in their organizational objectives,
Mhm.
whatever it is. I mean it's just very different,
Right.
and that's what changed. So even though we did face a lot of challenges, in scaling, in terms of the other things, more or less, it was still better than what what was in store for us when we were working in the Indian market.
Right. And this did this time coincide with your seeing the digital marketing space as such in general and the opportunities it offers for you? Or how did that?
Yeah, so around 2007, when we started getting these opportunities, digital marketing was a very, very new term. And frankly, the only reason we got an opportunity in that space because we had a web development background.
Hmm.
So, but yes, I mean, stuff like SEO, PPC,
Correct.
social media was non-existent at that time in
Yes.
terms of social media marketing. So SEO and PPC was at a very, very initial stage where
Yes,
I
absolutely.
am sure we still remember the days when there were Google AdSense programs running.
Mhm.
So very, very kind of initial days. And but what we knew was that this digital marketing is going to undergo a lot of transformation,
True.
and brands, both B2C as well as especially B2B, won't have any other option but to adapt to the changing marketing
Absolutely.
landscape.
Absolutely.
And so it was a good place to be in at that time.
Yeah. And you got it quite early in this whole
Yes.
journey. So,
Yes.
you got into SEO quite early. So,
Yes.
I mean, given that Google themselves launched in 2002,
Correct.
getting into SEO in 2007 is something that would be very, very
Yes.
early days.
Yes.
And when they were also kind of evolving that technology.
Correct.
And so that
Correct.
made it, that gave you an upper hand probably in this whole scenario, right? So,
Exactly. Correct. And not just that, I mean, and evolving ethically, because SEO was very notorious
mhm,
the space in
Mhm.
terms of the how people could manipulate
mhm,
and get on top of search rankings. So uh, I think the experience of working with international partners gave us that opportunity to do the right things uh, and and be appreciated for that. So
correct.
that was another reason why like Shirish mentioned, our lives changed, because I think we found good people to work with who
Mhm.
valued ethical relationships and partnerships. So that was also a big thing.
Correct. That's a good thing actually from that perspective. And then when did you get into even a much bigger space where you partnered with bigger companies like HubSpot and Salesforce, etc.? What was that journey and how did?
So between 2007 and 2014, we exclusively, kind of worked in the Australian market. And we supported, and we had an Australian partner actually who was based locally, Gautam. We had a great relationship with him as well. And so together we built a complete backend operations, kind of a system for
Mhm.
one of the biggest, domain and hosting providers in Australia. Like you might know, everybody knows GoDaddy
Mhm.
as
Right.
one of the biggest ones. So the one in Australia was called Melbourne IT.
Mhm.
I mean, Melbourne IT is a big brand in itself in Australia, and we were managing thousands of their customers in
Mhm.
through our team here, and kind of doing web pages for them, SEO, PPC, and security. I mean, all kinds of the entire gamut. So while this operation, kind of I would say, kind of it lasted till around 2014-15 when Melbourne IT, kind of decided to, again, they had a organizational, change within
Mhm.
Melbourne IT. And during that time, we had also some other customers for whom we were doing white label services actually.
Right.
And so our team had, kind of grown to around 80, 100, people. And suddenly when this Melbourne IT change happened, and even, the other company we were working with, kind of, it was a listed company on the stock exchange, and it, kind of went bust overnight.
Mhm.
So, that kind of was a, like a pause in the entire, this thing, in our journey, and where we thought that, listen, I mean, if we have to, kind of, we can't rely only on,
Just on one
because SEO,
source.
PPC, and web development inherently meant that you were dealing with small businesses.
Right.
If you had to go up the value chain and kind of start talking to bigger companies, even medium enterprises, even though not like large enterprises, even medium enterprises, you needed to kind of up your game and up your capabilities, to what I mean the marketing metrics in which they kind of exist. So that's how we that little jolt which we got propelled us to kind of saying that we should upgrade ourselves
Mhm.
and kind of develop more capabilities, and therefore we started kind of looking at how we could do that. And HubSpot was the answer. I mean, that was the starting point for a new kind of a phase
Mhm.
for us.
Right. And from that, so you kind of today are partners to HubSpot, right? You are implementing HubSpot.
Yeah. So
Can you explain something on that? How what you really do in your services for the benefit of audience?
sure. So yes, we are a HubSpot partner. In fact, we were amongst the first 10 HubSpot partners in India,
Mhm.
probably the first in the western region of India. As a part of HubSpot partnership, what we do is basically enable uh, companies or businesses that are on HubSpot to a either new subscribers, we help them get onboarded properly on
right.
HubSpot. So that involves setting things up, making sure all the implementations are correct, and so on and so forth. And for those that are already HubSpot users, we come in as HubSpot execution partners. So we enable their marketing teams and whatever marketing departments, support them with all the skill sets that are required to run their marketing campaigns and programs.
Correct. As a one-stop solution to
Correct.
do all their
Correct.
campaigning.
Correct.
Great, fantastic. So, what really? I mean, I'm seeing that since 1999 you were in the service mode all the time. Did it at any point in time till this time, till 2014-15, ever come in your minds whether we should get into a product mode at some point, or you still wanted to continue in a service mode? And what was the real kind of the seeding of that? I mean, why services, kind of, if I have to put that question? What was the rationale behind that?
So we tried, getting into the product landscape, especially, when we had enough knowledge about the SEO and PPC thing, and we developed tools which we ourselves used,
Okay.
in the back end. Like I said, for Melbourne IT, we were managing like thousands of customers. So we had our own proprietary
Tools.
tools, at the back end. But, to be an out and out product company needs a completely different mindset. What we realized was that it's a completely different ballgame, right from the mindset to, the kind of team you need. Like I said, both of us come from a non-technical background as such. So, you would need a CTO kind of a person to join. And,
Right.
so while we tried, exploring partnerships on that front, but somehow, we could not disengage ourselves from the fact that we are an out and out service company.
Right.
And then after a while, we thought this is our, strength, and let's just focus on
Play
being
on
a
our
good
strengths.
service company rather than, trying to,
Absolutely.
even though we understood, how products work, and I will not deny the fact that the allure was there. I mean, there was a pull because we thought we could do it.
Right.
But then, we reined ourselves in, and not at the cost of our, core offering. So
Correct,
that,
correct.
we remained a service company.
Correct. Yeah, great. So I'm sure during this journey, even when we talk about 1999 to 2014 or 13 or 14, you have had your own share of failures and setbacks. And some of these probably failures, setbacks would have been defining moments, would have changed the course of your company, anything of that sort, different from what you originally conceptualized. Of course, while on the way, you see a lot of things and you change your course, and rightly so. I'm just saying, do you have any such pivotal moments which you want to really talk on or dwell on?
No, I mean, the first pivot was from being a kind of a digital marketing, white label digital marketing services provider to kind of move up the value chain with HubSpot and other platforms also. We didn't mention that earlier, but other platforms like Marketo and Sitecore.
So just, sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah.
When you say white label, so you used to build stuff for customers and they used to kind of
Correct.
brand it themselves.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. So more like a wholesale provider.
Okay.
So that's why we dealt with volumes. And so when Akshizin mentioned that we used to manage thousands of customers, that was essentially because of these kind of engagements.
Right.
So the dependency on one customer as well as our experience with one of our major customers going bankrupt. I mean, that was the first kind of a
jolt
for us, and that prompted us to not just look at more avenues, but also to look at different markets.
Mhm.
So So we wanted to be in a position where, we are not overtly dependent on just one or two major
Right.
customers and one market. So
Right.
so that was the first kind of
Right. So you wanted to spread yourselves out
correct.
with
Correct.
more customers, more markets, more regions, etc.
Correct.
So HubSpot is clear, but what about the other partners like Salesforce? Are you? I mean, did you go after them also, or you have customers who wanted to implement there as well, or is it more or less just one or two partners?
No, so we are partners with Marketo as well,
Mhm.
Adobe Marketo. Sales and on the other platforms like Salesforce, while we're not an official partner, but we do provide services on
Right.
those. Yeah.
Right, as
So-
kind of a expert service providers, not
Correct.
necessarily through their channels, but
Correct.
as in
Correct.
from an outside channel.
Correct.
Okay. What about your team and your people? I mean, all this journey, you would have definitely built a team of people working. What do you want to say about your hiring process and the way you have retained your people along? I'm sure most of the people who are on board are still around
Yeah.
for all these years, right? So
Yeah, so I mean, our hiring process is kind of it's pretty intimate. I mean, if you ask me, of course we have an HR manager who herself has been working with us for the past 10
Yeah, more than
10 odd
10
years.
years. Yeah.
And that's the story of all our employees. I mean, mostly we don't see a very high turnover from our employees.
fantastic. Mhm.
And since we work 100% remote, I mean, that's an added kind of
So that's been your model right from the beginning. It's not that you changed in COVID times or something like that.
No, we went remote consciously before COVID.
Okay.
So around 6 to 8 months before COVID, we made a conscious decision that the remote model would work better for us. So
Mhm.
and that's what we did.
Mhm.
So in 2019, 2019 November, we
Yeah.
formally went 100% remote.
Mhm.
And as luck would have been, or ill luck, whatever. I mean, it's the COVID, kind of hit in 2000.
Just restrained every office
yeah,
to
yes.
be
So-
working from their homes and
So luckily, by that time, our processes and all were completely set, and we were
Fantastic.
already working remote.
fantastic.
And that helped. A lot of our people, kind of don't want to leave their hometowns,
Mhm.
and they're very happy working from their native places.
Mhm.
And there are there's a lot of there are a lot of women who again kind of look at this as a feature rather than a bug, obviously.
Mhm.
And that's what has kind of coming back to the fact that we've kind of we don't kind of experience heavy turnover in our
So you have kept them comfortable. I mean, they are
Yeah.
working from their homes,
Absolutely.
from their cities. So you
Yeah.
mean you have employees spread across India?
Yes.
That's fantastic.
in all corners of India. I mean,
Fantastic.
some couple of them are actually even abroad.
Yeah.
So it's a very small close knit team, which we've been together for at least 10 years. I mean, like,
Yeah.
Mhm. So I'm sure you'd be getting them in once in a year to just have some kind of a tete-a-tete or a face-to-face to.
yeah, we do that. But most of our interaction, like I said, we use Monday.com, and our HR person is very, very proactive. In terms of getting everybody together. We celebrate birthdays, we celebrate special occasions, and everything. Kind of. I mean, we get together on a lot more occasions.
Wow.
After we've started going remote, so that helps.
Yeah, absolutely. And coming more closer from 2014 to 2019, this phase you had. So you started your journey. You recognized digital marketing is the way to go forward. You found the right partners. You started partnering. You started having operations, kind of customers globally now. So that once you realize that depending on one customer is not going to help you, you wanted to grow in all directions. So from this point, probably you also onboarded somewhere in 2019 a third partner with yourself. So can you explain something on that?
So our third partner, Urushi, actually is a batchmate of mine from my MBA, and so before she joined us, she has had a quite a illustrious career working with ICI, with Microsoft, Nokia, and her last stint was with Jio when Jio was getting launched in India. And it just so happened that she was at a stage where she was looking for options which are more aligned with her life goals,
Mhm.
which meant taking it a little easy. She had been on the corporate treadmill for quite a while, and
Mhm.
just wanted to kind of get down for a while.
Mhm.
And since we were always in touch, and I had always seeked her help whenever we kind of faced an issue, and therefore it was quite an organic way in which she blended in.
Mhm.
And now it's been like a good 6 years now,
Mhm.
and she's as much a part of the whole founding team
Mhm.
as the both of us.
And I'm sure with her experience and background and network, that would have given a lot of value to you in terms of being in corporates like what
Correct,
she's been
because
earlier.
with the kind of platforms we are working on now, we were slowly moving up the value chain. So, like Siddhish mentioned earlier, uh, we were mostly working with small businesses,
Correct.
and then we started. Once we built these capabilities around marketing, automation, technology, we started working with medium enterprises, uh, and in the future we would go on to work with major enterprises also. So her background, her skill sets, her experience have been invaluable in those
Mm.
kind of engagements,
Mm.
because she leads most of our efforts with these clients now.
Mm. With her experience, of course, it makes
Yes,
it easy for
yes,
her,
yes,
and given the comfort with which
correct,
she is working now with you guys.
correct.
So it's she's seen those environment,
Mhm.
that particular environment in close quarters, so that
Mhm.
helps.
Right.
While we haven't really worked in corporates,
Sure.
Corporates, correct.
That's correct.
because
That's correct.
yeah, so that kind of brings a very unique kind of a
Absolutely.
quality
With one who
to
is
all our
already experienced
interactions.
and worked and knows
Correct.
how to get things done,
Exactly.
so it's
Correct.
really a big value add.
Correct.
So, and rightly so. So you mentioned 2019 was a little bit of turning point from the perspective of taking Urbi on board, and of course, once COVID had hit, you guys were already prepared with having your employees working out of their home, so that didn't change. But anything changed from the way you were offering? Like, did you start doing some productization or?
Yes. So the nature of our work is such that in if you compare it with a regular IT services kind of a company, uh, our projects don't stretch for years together.
Mhm.
Correct. So we deal with much shorter turnaround projects, and so what that means is there's always a pressure to drive numbers. Uh, yeah, so necessarily what it does is we used to be always under pressure to sell more, sell short turnaround projects.
Right.
So that was one, and what that does is that puts a lot of pressure on the company's cash flows.
Mhm.
It puts a lot of pressure on the way we hire our teams and etc. So we are always kind of thinking that is there a better way to package our offerings,
Mhm.
and yeah,
One other thing which kind of if you can kind of assign one word to it, it's unpredictability.
yeah,
Right.
So everybody, I mean, we're looking at predictable revenue,
Correct.
right? I mean, so the pressure which you're talking about is not actually the pressure of it's the pressure of unpredictability.
unpredictability. Correct.
Mm.
Yeah, so with that thought in mind, we are always looking at ways to kind of make things predictable for us,
Mhm.
and so we tried to figure out as to with our customers, the kind of customers we are targeting. How could we do that? And where then we kind of started thinking that if we are able to create a productized kind of packages
Correct.
of our services,
Yeah.
then it might just work, because then it adds a lot of, like you said, predictability for us, but it also adds a lot of value for the customer,
Hmm.
in the sense that they are also aware of exactly what they get in terms of when they sign up a vendor,
Hmm.
what they get. And always in services, there are always kind of ups and downs. There are scope creeps, there are
Very
scope
well said.
changes.
So here you have a defined scope and a
Exactly.
defined product-like thing. So
Correct.
this is what is included in this whole thing. You know
Exactly.
when it starts, when it ends,
Exactly.
and the expectations are properly set. I think
Correct.
this is one of the crucial things that you've just talked about. I mean, I've come across many companies and startups that are kind of struggling with services which they want to really productize and don't have a way to do it.
Correct.
So this is a very, very crucial point. That is one aspect of it. The other aspect of services, I mean, you guys may not be into it, but startups looking to scale, looking for funding, looking for engaging with the potential VCs, the VCs always look into product categories more than services. I mean, nobody wants to invest in a services company as such. So that is the reason, this productization is something that is very, very crucial.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, I would like to understand more how you really has that impacted your scale in some way? Has that impacted your turnover in some way? I mean, have you been able to do more with productization than you?
Absolutely. In terms of all the stages of our customer journey, right from attracting better customers to retaining them and servicing them, I think it has had a major impact at all stages of that funnel.
Hmm.
So definitely, it's something, but it as simplistic as it may sound, it takes time to
Correct. To
kind
visualize
of,
what kind of
yes,
productization you want to do.
correct.
This is a very important point.
Because we cannot have a generic
Absolutely.
kind of productization.
Yeah.
We need to understand our customers. We need to know what they want, and that comes as a function of having worked or slogged for years together.
Absolutely.
So
And each customer has got its own
Exactly.
needs and
so
requirements.
so even with productization, there needs to be enough flexibility in your
Absolutely.
products, so that at the end of the day, the customers need to also feel in control
Hmm.
of
That they're getting what they want.
Exactly.
Kind of. Yeah.
So it's not that, hey, I've you only paid me for this, so I'm not going to do this B. It doesn't work that way. So
Absolutely, I
that
agree.
flexibility kind of has to be factored in
Hmm.
and built into the.
Yeah, it must have been really very difficult for you to do this. I mean, a lot of
It's a
thinking might have gone into it.
lot
and-
of thinking, and it's never a perfect place. So it's always evolving.
Correct.
So yeah, that's where we are at. So we are always evolving with that,
Great.
but it gives us a kind of a structure to work with and structure to attract better customers, and at the same time bring in a lot of stability into our operations.
Hmm. Yeah, very well said. I think these are the key factors that you can look into, productization of services. Now, coming to your entrepreneurial journey, I mean, right from the beginning till now, there would be a few personality traits in both of you, kind of defining traits that would have helped you overcome failures, setbacks, and kind of come what may, I won't give up. That kind of a resilience. So, can you tell me more about what kind of traits really define you and Kaustubh? And this I'm looking at more from a perspective of what today's budding startup founders and entrepreneurs should look to. Your journey has been like more than 20 years. So, there must be something really very highlighting in your trait.
I think it's, I mean, the usual words would be grit and perseverance. I mean, without that, there's no way
Absolutely.
you can, kind of sustain.
The words may sound like euphemisms, but
Yeah, exactly. I mean, even while saying it, you feel a little, kind of that they're overdone, and kind of everybody comes
Says
across
this.
these words. But to live those words
absolutely.
is another thing, and kind of that's why. I mean, we feel that we are at least qualified to kind of say that we did exhibit some grit and perseverance. But yeah, I mean, those are the personality traits, and we both of us are like cricket fanatics, so kind of we always go back to
Absolutely.
drawing parallels from
Fantastic.
cricket and kind of this thing
and test match fanatics.
Yeah.
So,
So I do this also in my sales. I mean, I always compare a salesperson with a sportsman. So there's win and lose at all times.
Correct.
These two categories of people are really resilient because they have lost many, they have also won. So they don't take it to their head. I mean, a good salesperson should not take things to his head. So very well said.
correct.
This
So
is
we feel that we have a sportsman's mindset. I mean, so
fantastic.
and that's what we've kind of told each other in in trying times, that we have to stay on the wicket. I mean, that's our thing. Runs will come. You have to leave the bat balls. But you have to stay. If you get out, then then you're out. You have
Absolutely.
to just stay. I mean, and that comes at a price. I mean,
At a
it-
price.
you have to put a
Absolutely.
price on your wicket. So all our kind of terms come from our love for cricket, and especially test match cricket, the long format, because we believed that when we started this, I always believed that this was a long format. I mean, like it's not a short thing. I mean, I
That's
still
very
don't
well said.
understand, since you mentioned about startups and this thing, I still don't understand sometimes how the whole startup thing has evolved in India.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not being judgmental, but that's something which we didn't we just don't understand. For us, it's a long format. I mean, you have to stay. That's it.
Fantastic. I mean, I've talked to other founders. They said the same. Keep going with your vision. Your vision should be there, right? Whatever you have thought of, you should just keep going after it. So that's very, very similar kind of a thought process.
but at the same time, in addition to, I think, grit and perseverance, I think adaptability is also
Fantastic.
very
Very well
uh,
said. Very,
very
well said.
key factor. So
Very
you
well
can't be too rigid with or
Absolutely.
fall too much in love with your own
Absolutely.
thoughts and vision. So that also
You
has
need
been
to allow yourself
Yes.
to evolve
exactly
to the market needs. So
exactly, because see, it's when you have that kind of an open mind, you are also able to see your own mistakes,
yes,
because you can't adapt, you can't evolve unless you have that kind of an open mind, understand that you may not have always done the right thing,
Hmm.
and then do a course correction. So
Hmm.
all those things are also very important. So
Hmm.
yeah.
And between you as brothers, of course, the chemistry is great. But I think it goes beyond that. I mean, your families, your wife and your parents probably, they would have also, kind of given you that kind of a rock solid support whenever you were low down there and, kind of encouraging you. Rather than, I've seen instances where when somebody fails, then there's this typical, I told you that you shouldn't have attempted this. So how was it in your case? Just wanted to understand.
In our case, we are the only people in our entire family to have started something on our own.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe a cousin or two has kind of also, but more or less, I mean, like any other Brahmin middle class family, most of our cousins and most of us are doctors and engineers. And we were also kind of expected, not by our parents, by others, to kind of probably follow.
Societal expectations.
Yeah. Because we didn't do that badly in school and college. I mean, I was a topper in my school,
Wow.
and I had an engineering and a medical seat, but I chose commerce because I wanted to, kind of do something else. So the thing is that our parents never ever discouraged.
That's
I
great,
mean,
yeah.
whatever decision we took, they stood by us.
That's great.
And
I'm
also-
sure they must have, kind of gone through phases where, because it, like I said, it's a long drawn thing. I mean,
Mhm.
it must not have been easy for them to see probably, people of my age, I mean, kind of getting ahead
Yeah.
At that point of time, and kind of, but whatever they must have felt, even in moments of extreme doubt, it didn't kind of
Reflect on you.
reflect
guys.
on us.
Fantastic.
Not even for a minute. I mean, so they stood behind us unflinchingly, both in terms of the rock solid
Mhm.
support which anybody needs, and that continued with when we got married, our wives, and they've also been extremely supportive of the entire journey.
Great.
So yeah, I mean, since childhood, like Shirish said, I mean, our parents never, kind of tried to compartmentalize our thoughts. So I think our parents also had an independent streak, but for some reasons they couldn't. But they always encouraged us. So, so we've had this deep desire, like I said at the beginning, to be independent since childhood. So that was there, and then our spouses, and I would also say our in-laws, because it's not easy to
Absolutely.
accept.
Very well said. This is the
Yeah,
Indian norm.
correct. So it's not so. So we've been very lucky to have kind of that ecosystem. Family ecosystem, the immediate family ecosystem, because beyond that ecosystem, it really doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. Absolutely.
So, but these are the people who've been with us right from the
And
beginning.
they are directly impacted by
Directly
whatever decision you
impacted.
take and
Correct.
whatever setbacks or failures you
Correct.
have or successes you have.
Correct. And now I think even our kids, because it's not a regular kind of environment, right?
Right.
Where the dad goes out, works, or flies out for 15 days in a month. So they don't see that everywhere. So I think even our kids have understood what. But for the longest time, I don't think our parents, our spouses know exactly what we do. So
it was like, as long as you guys are clear of what you're doing, I'm fine.
Correct. So
No, this
while
thing-
coming for this, my wife was like, I might finally try to understand as to what do you guys exactly do after this. so
No, this point about, I've been in similar shoes, in fact, working from home from 2007. So earlier days, it was like almost like a shame. I mean, working from home, does that exist? I mean, are you really working? And today it's the in thing. I mean, that's a totally different shift today. So I had a lot of my own problems convincing my own family and my children when they were young.
Correct.
That there is a possibility that dad is working out of one of the rooms in the house. And the positive side to all this is, after a while, when they grew up and they when I asked them, how was it that you had me all along? So I said, yes, that was the best thing that we got. We got your guidance whenever we needed it, so we were always there for us. So that is a kind of a saving grace from that perspective of
Correct.
being at home
Correct.
and working from
Because
home.
the maid always asks, "Saab ghar pe rehte hai kya?"
I remember the same thing when I was living in Mumbai before 2007. It was a smaller house, and there was like a community because I was there from my birth. I mean, and neighbors were like just like aunties, and very closely related. And everyone used to peep in and say, "Hey, you still are not jobless, huh?" So I said, "No, I'm working." So I used to really had to prove that I was really working.
Correct.
Anyways, so what are your further scaling plans? Do you have any plans to scale, or how do you think you want to go forward from here?
So while we continue to kind of fine tune our marketing programs to attract more customers, one perk of being independent is that we are not chased by external pressures
Correct.
of growth. So we will take our time, and we have always grown organically, and we'll continue to look for organic ways to grow. As far as the B2B marketing automation piece is concerned, but the reality is that because now things are at a stage where all three of us are not required to be a part of the business on a absolute.
So it's become like
day-to-day
a
basis.
well-oiled machine. So it's running on its
kind
own.
of, it's, at least one of us, has decided that, I'll step out and look for newer, kind of avenues where we build on our expertise and yet do something different looking at the next 25 years.
Fantastic.
And so it's me who has, kind of stepped out from the day-to-day operations of Prodigitus. And, I am looking at building a D2C, brand. Like I said, it kind of, we've always had, a creative streak in us, and it's a good, kind of area to explore, a D2C brand, which also, kind of brings in our digital marketing expertise and our marketing background.
Mhm.
So, I'm bullish on, the next 2 decades,
Fantastic.
with a D2C brand.
Fantastic. Okay, guys. So finally, what is your message for budding founders and entrepreneurs out there?
But we still are, budding founders. At least that's the way we look at us. But if
That's really modest, I must say, having come this far. But anyways, that kind of mindset will help you grow further.
well, if there's one message, it's, kind of, it's you should know why you're doing it. I mean, the why is very important.
You mean why you're starting a
Yeah.
startup? Okay.
There has to be a strong reason for that, not just because it's trending and
Very
it's
well
very
said.
cool. So what are you doing? I'm doing a startup.
Very well
I
said.
mean, there has to be something beyond that, because it's a lifetime of a commitment. It's a whole, kind of different ball game, and it's brutal. I mean, you have to accept that it's not a bed of roses. Nothing is, in a way, but especially entrepreneurship is not for the faint-hearted, and should not be, kind of looked at as one of those cool things which you will do to impress someone.
Right.
So knowing that why is important. So invest some time in understanding why you want to do it.
Okay.
That would be my message.
And if you know the why, then just embrace the process. And
Fantastic. So well said.
just enjoy the whole thing, because there are going to be more downs than ups. So have a little bit of sense of humor. Enjoy the downs as well. It's not so bad. You can always get back up again. So
Yeah.
that's all.
No, you have summed up it in a very similar way where in which other founders have. They've said the same thing. Enjoy the journey.
Exactly.
Enjoy the journey more than there's nothing like you have to, success is, I mean, they say it's a journey. The real getting the journey is really the success. I mean, being resilient in the whole journey
Correct.
through all the ups and downs. That's the real success.
And success means different to different people.
people,
I mean, so
absolutely.
you need to have your own,
Calibration of what is your
what is
success.
success according to you, and that's very important. It's not what success meant to the person who kind of either came on a magazine or kind of did 100 crore or 1,000 crore exit, or I mean, that's also success, but that's not the only success.
Absolutely.
So you have to define it for yourself.
Very well said.
And because I've seen some examples, they know the why, they kind of embrace the journey. But if you don't kind of make a success out of it or whatever, it's okay to fail, and it's okay to not be an entrepreneur.
Absolutely.
So it's okay.
Absolutely. No, this is the kind of mindset. This is probably the reason I asked you what kind of traits and mindset you really require. I mean, it's really okay not to achieve what you thought or what you set as a goal. It's fine, but it all depends on how we have trained your mind and what we have learned in these years. And the failures are really a kind of a learning book for you from where how to go forward in your life.
Correct.
Probably it forms certain philosophies in your mind also. As you said, at some point it may kind of fade off. The difference between success and failure will fade off at some point, and it all depends on what you think. Yeah, great. Thank you, Kshitish and Kaustubh, for joining us today and sharing your valuable insights. I'm sure these will be incredibly beneficial for budding entrepreneurs and founders. We thank you, the audience, for your attention and time. Stay tuned to this space and we will have more episodes featuring successful founders. You can connect with me on LinkedIn. I go by the name Rangan Jayakrishnan. I await your valuable feedback on my email jrangan@gmail.com as in my name. Thank you.
Thank
Pleasure,
you, JK.
JK. Thank you so much.